Good morning. Thanks for watching this video. So in order to install and set up MassMailer, the very first step that you need to do is go to massmailer.io/install and bring up this particular page where you can install it in production or in sandbox. So assume that you want to install in production, so you would click on this. And then you would want to log into your environment. You're gonna copy my user ID here. So let's go and enter. Log in. Make sure that you actually install it for all users, so which is the second option here. Select that and then click install. And don't worry that not all the users are going to use MassMailer. That's absolutely okay, because ultimately we're going to assign the license to the respective users who are actually going to use MassMailer. Not everybody will be able to access or see it. But at the time of installing, you need to make sure that you install it for all users. That's the mandatory step. And click on that install button. It'll ask you to approve the third-party access. So select this checkbox and click continue. It may take some time to install it. It'll show a message that it's taking time. That's okay. So just patiently wait for it to install.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Now it's showing the message that it's taking a long time to install. So click on this button called done. So as you can see that it's still taking time to install. So while we are waiting for it to install, there's one mandatory step that we need to take. I think I prefer to wait for it to install and then show so that you can correlate why I'm doing this. So let's just wait for some more time. You can keep refreshing this page every 30 seconds or a minute, or you can actually wait for an email to be sent to you by Salesforce where it says that installation is successful. And just in case if you get any errors, you can always refer to our support site here. So the way you can go to our support site is by going to our website. You will see a support link. So when you click on the support link, that's going to take you to the support site such as this. So you'll be landed onto this home page, in which you have an option here to go to the configuration guide and the troubleshooting guide. So these two are important. So I'm going to open this configuration guide to start with. So this also has a link to the troubleshooting tips. So click on that just to have that as a reference. Okay, so it's not linked properly. Let me go back to home and I'll open the troubleshooting guide from here. So get started troubleshooting guide. Okay, yeah. So sometimes you may get some errors like your organization is missing, the feature is missing, that's called IDS. If you see this error, then you need to switch to classic mode, log into Salesforce, switch to classic mode, go to setup, quick find ideas, and then click on idea settings and enable ideas and save. So this is a small little step that you need to take care whenever you see an error such as organization feature ideas is missing. Um, and then uh, there's another error that you may get if the template editor is not rendering in Office Network. This may happen like a very rare issue that you may see this, but if at all you ever get this error, make sure that you whitelist this, the domain in your network. So that's another issue that we have seen that's in the app feature issue. Okay. Make sure that your organization is enterprise or above. So we support enterprise, unlimited, and the platform editions. We also support the community licenses too, but we do not support the professional edition. So make sure that you have one of these the editions that you support in MassMailer. Let's go take a look at this. Okay, all right. So we got the app installed. So the next step is to go to the app. So I'm gonna go open one more window, which I already have it here. So I would go to the app by clicking on this app launcher, and you can search for MassMailer. It'll show MassMailer Lightning if you're in Lightning mode. If you're in Classic, the app is named as MassMailer Classic. So the first step is going to this Setup tab. And in this step, I would see account settings and MassMailer login. So you are basically going to go create a brand new user by clicking on this button called create user. Since I already have um, an account with the same email address, I may get an error. I'm going to go do a try. All right, yeah. So in your scenario, you may not see this error. It's actually better if I demonstrated this. So basically, from MassMailer, you will be able to create an account, provided you never create an account with the same email address that you have for this particular user that you logged in. So remember, so if you logged in with a user and that particular user ID has an email address, if you ever created a user, MassMailer user, using that email address, you won't be able to reuse the same email address to create another one. So basically, once you created the user, you will receive an email with the login details. Make sure that you store that and then reuse that by clicking on this edit user button. So that is the right way to do it. So basically, if you already created MassMailer user account before, then the right way to do it is create this, click on this edit user and then enter the values such as email, username, password, and API key. Otherwise, you would actually just click on this create user button. Since I already have the credentials that I would like to use, I'm actually going to go look for those values right here. Um, and then I'm going to enter those values.
This conference will now be recorded.
I've entered all the details here, the email address, username, password, and the API key, and I'm clicking on the save button, and then I save the credentials, and then I'm going to the next step. So make sure that you get this, the values in the step, the usage, which means that everything went on well. And then you would go to the next step here. So this particular notification section is meant to receive email notification for some of the processes that we have in the app. So the one that you see here, it is related to the tools section. So we have in the tools section, we have a schedule purge and manual purge. This is meant to delete any excessive data that MassMailer creates in your system, such as MassMailer email status, the outreaches, and the activity history. If you want to kind of keep your data like not overflowing, you know, make sure it's not overflowing the quota, it is always better to either delete the records, excessive records, using a scheduled job or manually deleting them. So we do send out notification whenever the delete job or the purge job gets finished or gets done. And that is what you see here in the notification section. But we are going to add more and more notifications down the line. So for now, you would just go add any email address that you want to notify, and then click save, and then activate. So that's how you basically activate it. So once you're done with the notification, you would go to the next step, in which, so here we have something called tracking settings, where you're actually going to set up the email event notification settings to start with, for which the first step is you will have to um, set up the site. So that's the very first step that you do. So make sure that you register a domain if it is not done. I'll demonstrate what it means. But the reason why we do it is the email notification events come from the SendGrid platform that we use. So behind the scenes, we use SendGrid to send out emails. And whenever email gets delivered or opened, clicked, bounced, or any event that happens with the email, that gets captured from SendGrid via Salesforce site, which is what we're going to create here. For that particular site, we will have to, two things that need to happen. First of all, you got to create a site for which you need to have a domain. That's a manual step that we're going to take care right now. Once we have the domain set up, then we'll go ahead and create a site using this section here, set up site and sharing settings. So we will automatically create a site and assign the permission set that is necessary. We're also gonna create sharing rules in the group, even though this particular feature, or rather requirement, is not going to be there from the next release onwards, meaning you won't be able to create a group and the sharing rules, but you would still have to create a site. So let's go ahead and take a look at your setup, and then go to site. So click on the Salesforce setup, home, quick find sites, and then click on the sites. Okay, as you can see that the Salesforce site domain is not created yet. Uh, Remember the company domain that you have, if your company has got a domain that's abc.com, that is different from Salesforce site domain. So as you can see, this is basically just a subdomain under force.com. So you just have to give something unique for your own company that will stay as a subdomain under force.com. So for this particular arc, I'm going to give this training 0504 as the subdomain, and then I'm going to go check availability just in case if you ever receive an error that the domain is not available. You can always add some additional characters such as say or whatever you want to have that will make it as unique URL. So once you see that message success, select this checkbox and then register my Salesforce site domain. So in this step, we are just creating a Salesforce site domain. So once it gets registered, as you can see, we got the site domain that is registered already. You don't have to really do anything here other than going back to the setup step once again. So now that we are done with this, we went to the sites and then created a domain, Salesforce site domain, and then you would come here and click on the setup site and sharing settings button, which will in a way create a site, assign the permission set, and will create the group, and also it will create a sharing group. So it's showing an error here that it has got field integrity exception. Sometimes you may see this exception. Again, it could be related to your sharing settings. I wanted to demonstrate this as well. Sometimes you may have sharing settings that are not um, giving an access to the guest user. So you'll have to watch for this. I want to demonstrate this as well. So basically, we use the guest user, Salesforce guest user, in order to capture the email event notifications. If at all you have the secure guest user record access that is checked flagged as true, you will see that error. So in order to make sure that the site setup goes through fine, you basically edit your sharing settings and then go to that secure guest user record access, uncheck that, and then click on the save button. That is a mandatory step. But if your organization has a limitation way in which you have to have the test check, that's okay. At least at the time of installation and setup, you will have to uncheck that and then come back here to this step and then click on the setup site and sharing settings once again so that our group, the group creation goes through fine and the sharing rules gets created and the site is also created in this environment right now. So you may see an error just in case the Salesforce site is not available yet. Unfortunately or fortunately, we did not get that error, so that's okay. So if at all you ever receive an error here in which it says that the site is not ready or anything related to the site URL, you can ignore that error and then go to the other steps that I'm demonstrating, and you can come back and then update that site at a later point in time. So here, event logging, you would always want to log activities using Salesforce email message, assuming that you're most likely going to use HTML layout, or rather advanced template builder from MassMailer, or maybe custom HTML from Salesforce, which will store the activities as Salesforce email message. It'll look very nice if you actually activate the activities using Salesforce email message. And in order for you to actually use this, one more step that I want to demonstrate, you need to have an enhanced email feature that is enabled. So again, you would go to Salesforce setup and then type in enhanced email, and then this need to be enabled. So this is by default enabled for this particular org, so I don't need to do anything. Otherwise, you will, if you are an old customer of Salesforce, you may or may not have this feature enabled. So make sure that the enhanced email is already enabled in this scenario. So basically, in order for you to enable this log activities using Salesforce email message, you need to have the enhanced email feature also enabled. So that's one more thing that you need to be careful about in the setup step. So rest of it, you do not have to. This is only if you want to suppress any email event logging, then you would want to do this at the org level or at the app settings level. Otherwise, you skip the same thing, turn off Salesforce activity logging. You don't need to do anything unless you want to turn this off at the org level. And the next step, email event tracking settings. For this particular org, I know I already have all this enabled. Otherwise, if you don't see this being enabled, you should actually enable them. And also, I have the unsubscribed content in the text body that is already populated here. When you install MassMailer, most likely you will also have the default the content. Just in case if you do not have the default content by some reason, you can always edit this and then make sure that you provide any kind of content that you would like to have in this scenario. What we have is you would like to unsubscribe and stop receiving these emails, click here, and then I have a small little HTML code that says div align center so that the unsubscribe link will show in the middle of the email or it gets entered. We place this link at the bottom of the email, so you don't have to do anything other than just entering the actual text value that you want to display for the global unsubscribe. So there are two types of subscriptions that we support. One is global, other one is called the group unsubscribe feature. So the content settings that you see is related to the global unsubscribe, which means if the recipient user clicks on the unsubscribe link at the bottom of the email, they get unsubscribed from all the emails that you're sending. But in case of group unsubscribe, they will pick and choose which group they want to unsubscribe from. So basically, this is meant for global unsubscribe. So once you enter this value, and make sure that you have this less than the percentage and percentage greater than, that is where the actual link will appear. So the click here will have the link. And similarly for the text version, so if at all the email is sent as a text version, for which you would want to have the link just getting entered or merged into the content. That's why we are not going to give any text in between this less than percentage, percentage less than, because that's where we're actually going to replace this particular text with the actual link in case of a text email. So once you have that, click on the save button, make sure that it is saved, and then you go to the next step. And in this particular step, the few things that you would do, one is the object settings. And again, here by default, we enable certain objects for MassMailer. Those are lead, contact, user, case, and campaign member. If you ever need to add or edit any of this, that's fine. If you ever needed to say, let's say, edit the specific email field for contact, provided you have another email field on contact, you will see that appearing here. You just have to select that particular field and then save it. Or if you actually have to support any other object, that could be, maybe a standard object or a custom object, it'll show up here. And then you just have to select the respective email field in that particular object and then hit save. So that particular object will also be enabled in MassMailer. So I'm actually going to go and select or delete that. So we're not doing anything here because we're not making any changes in this installation. So let's just go to the next step here. This is where you can create your unsubscribe groups. Again, this is not mandatory. So what it means is that, as I said, we support the group unsubscription feature as well, in which you can have several options for the user to select if they want to unsubscribe from your email. So this is the email communication. This is the marketing related. You will receive marketing related emails, something like that. So let's say you want to create a group, make sure that this is checked as active and then create, which will create the group. And if you want to add more, such as newsletter, you will receive monthly email newsletter kind of description, and then hit again this button called create, and then it'll create another group. I think there may be a restriction on how many characters that you may have or something on those lines. I don't really remember. So there's a restriction of 30 characters or so. So basically, you need to make sure that you have the right width. In the next release, we're going to limit this particular input box so that you won't receive any error. At the time of creating, we will have a validation here. So once you created those groups, you would go to the next step here, in which, again, there are a few things that you could do. The global sender, again, if you have watched our demo video, at the time of sending an email, there's an option in which you can send or rather you can select the sender. It could be a logged in user, it could be a global sender, it could be on behalf of someone or completely custom. So the global sender is nothing but similar to common senders where you may have your company email or something that you're actually going to use, quite common. So, for example, hello is the one that I'm actually going to enter here as a common sender or a global sender, and then you just hit save. So that's how you create a global sender, which will show up in the outreach wizard in the sender option section as one of the options that you can now select. And this section is required if you want to have any BCC email. For example, if you're a financial services company, and if you needed to, like archive the emails, for example, you can enter whatever the email address that you have that is enabled, and that is a it could be an alias, it could be any email address where you want to BCC. I mean, financial services is just an example for archival, but it could be maybe your company or you want to BCC a particular email address. You can always come and create whatever the email address that you have, and then hit save. So that is one email address. If you needed to add more, that's okay. For example, if I want to add a generic email address, I'm going to add it. Or if you want to kind of add maybe a person's email address, that's fine too. Just come and then add it. So, how many ever you need to add as the global BCC emails. We are always going to BCC only one email. There's no way we can uh, do multiple right now. It's only one email that you can select at runtime when you're sending out email. But at let's say at the setup, you can have multiple BCC emails if uh, you want to do it that way. So you will see the default options here. Default BCC sender. You can enable this only if you want to BCC the sender in all emails. Again, at runtime, you can always unselect that. Otherwise, it would activate this only if you need that default BCC sender. And similarly, the suppress duplicate emails, you would enable this if you want to like suppress the duplicate emails at runtime. So let's say you have duplicate email addresses in the contact list or lead list when you're sending out emails to, or it could be any object, it doesn't matter. So if you do not want to send multiple emails to the same person, you can, there are two options. Either you clean up your database, Salesforce database, so that you don't have any duplicates. Or if you don't want to do that, if you want to rely on MassMailer so that we suppress the duplicate emails, you come and select this option, which will automatically suppress the duplicate emails behind the scenes. I'm gonna enable this feature right now, and then you would go to the next step. So here IP pools is not required for you to add. I already have something defined. I'll explain what it means. IP pools are required only if you have more than one IP address that you have purchased from MassMailer. By default, if you opted for Pro plan, or maybe you purchase the dedicated IP address, even if you are in Essentials plan, then you would receive one IP address. So for one IP address, you really don't have to create any pool because IP pool, because all the emails are going to go through that particular dedicated IP address. But IP pools are required only if you have more than one IP address, and if you want to distribute your email campaigns between those IP addresses on your own, not by the system, meaning not by MassMailer, then only you would create this. So one use case scenario is that you may have multiple teams using MassMailer, like such as marketing team, or maybe your operations team or sales team, and each one of them want to use their own IP address, and they want to keep their IP reputation intact for their own team, then they can come in and create this IP pool. All you need to do is just click on this IP pool name, and then let's say you want to create IP pool for sales. Enter that name, and then you can enter the IP address that we provide. So the IP address that you can enter here will be provided to you by us. So you need to enter that particular IP address, whatever it may be, and then save this by clicking on this icon. So that's how you kind of create IP pool. So I'm not gonna add anything there. So once you have the IP pool created, you would go to the next step, in which you, again, this is a tool that we provided where you can actually schedule a purge job to delete, overflowing data if needed, so that you can free up some of your data storage in Salesforce because it's quite expensive. You can select the specific MassMailer status values here, such as, say, for example, you don't want to create, processed records. Maybe what else? Maybe you don't want to have delivered, an example. And then you want to select the time here. It could be 30 days, 90 days, 180 days, older than 30 days, for example. And you can schedule a job just by selecting that. And that's it. That's all what you need to do. And same thing, you can do it for outreaches as well. It'll have option, 30 days, and then you can schedule this. Same thing, MassMailer activity history, schedule this. And this is basically creating a scheduled job behind the scenes that'll delete any processed email status records that are older than 30 days, and it's automatically deleting it for you. You don't need to do anything. Otherwise, if you ever want to manually delete any data, that's also possible. You just have to select whatever the events that you want to delete. You just select those events, and then select the range for the from and to, and then you just have to hit this icon, the trash icon, to delete the email status records. Same thing for outreaches, just give the range from date and to date for the activity history, from date and to date, and then hit this icon. So this is a manual purge, as you can see. Otherwise, you can skip this. Again, it's not mandatory to even schedule a per job. I was just demonstrating how to do it. You can actually skip these two steps on tools. You can always come back and then finish this later. And make sure that only admin does this. Like all the setup that I'm demonstrating, only the admin user should be doing this, not others. So basically, just by clicking on this finish button, you will be finishing the whole setup. So I'm going to go click on this finish button right here. And it said finish call successfully. So once you see that message, you're done with the setup when it comes to the MassMailer setup. But you still have to update your page layout, so which I'm going to demonstrate shortly. But if at all you see any error there when you're clicking on the finish button, most likely it may be related to the site, saying that the finish is not complete, something on those lines. That could be related to the site. You can always go back to MassMailer setup, after a few minutes or maybe 5-10 minutes, and then make sure that your site gets created. So when you go to tracking settings, you will have to make sure that the site URL is saved automatically. If it is not saved, you can try to save this, and most likely it may get saved. If it is still not saved, you have to wait for some time. If it is still not working, you can actually contact us. But typically, as I said, the site creation takes some time. And then if you receive an error, this is the right way to do it. You come here, make sure that you see the site has been updated, and then go back to this finish step and then click on this finish button. But if you still have any issues, feel free to send us an email at support@massmailer.io, or go to our support site at support.massmailer.io and then submit our support ticket. So make sure you get this finish call successfully, and then you're good. After which, so what we're going to do is we would go to the objects here, object manager, because we need to edit the page layouts. So it's not going to take much time. There are only a few steps that you need to go through here. So go to the object manager. Let's start with the lead object. Click on that lead, and then go to page layout. You may have multiple page layouts in this demo video, I'm gonna show you how to add the buttons on the lead layout, the standard lead layout. But if you needed to change the layout of the lead for any other layouts that you may have, you will follow the same steps. So click on this lead layout, and then you would go to the buttons and then add this button called send via MassMailer. And then we also have the mobile lightning actions as well, which is similar to the classic. So if you, there are two options here. You can override the predefined action. You click on this and then manually add that send via MassMailer button. Or if you never had this done before, you can always save this. So, there are two options, but I'm, gonna go the hard way here. So you click on this mobile lightning action and then just drag and drop that particular button right there. So once you're done, related list, you would do the exact same thing. And then you have an option here that is MassMailer related list. One of them is called email status, and the other one is called suppression list. So drag and drop these two options here. So the email status, you would click on this, and then you can pick and choose some of these values that I'm demonstrating. The next release, you don't have to do this because these will be auto-selected for you. You're packaging that. So make sure that you have unchecked these two options and then do that. And then after that, you go to the suppression list. You do the exact same thing. So you can pick and choose some of these values there. And then go here. For suppression list, you don't need to unselect new. Rather, you should just keep this. New is unchecked and then say OK. That is required because if you ever needed to add any record to the suppression list, all you need to do is click on that new button, and then you'll be able to add that particular record into the suppression list. So that's why we are not checking, rather not unchecking that new checkbox. And then you go to the search layout. Again, if you're in Classic, it may look a little different though, but more or less it's the same thing. So make sure you go to the default layout here and then click on Edit. And you'll see this option called Send via MassMailer. Select this and then save. So if you're on Classic, I think you will see this default option as well as the Classic one that I'm demonstrating back here. That's called List View. So you basically click on this search layout for Salesforce Classic. I'm doing this so that it's kind of enabled in both Classic mode and Lightning mode. Then you will see the Send via MassMailer. Select this and then save. And same thing you're going to do it for contact object as well. So you basically do quick find contact and then select this object. Same thing, you go to the page layout. Again, you may have more than one page layouts, or maybe the one that you're going to use is different from the contact layout. That's okay, but just follow the same steps here. Just to click on that layout, and then you would add the buttons. Send via MassMailer button, drag and drop. Again, I'm going to override the predefined actions here, but you may or may not have to do it. I'm sure your admin will be able to figure this out for you. So all you're going to do is add this Send via MassMailer. That's for it, and then related list. We have two that you need to drag and drop. That's MassMailer email status in the suppression list. Same thing, click here, select the fields. Suppression list, again, same thing. So leave this new as unchecked. Say OK, save it. And go to the search layout, the default layout, edit. Send me a MassMailer, save. Search layout for classic, list view, edit. Send me a MassMailer, save. So now we are done with our two objects, and the final object, that's a standard object called campaign. Select search for campaign, select campaign, go to the page layout, edit the layout again, whichever one that you're going to use. It could be more than one page layouts too. You can do the exact same thing for all of them. So click on button. So there are a bunch of buttons here, not just one. So you just start with the in a sequential order here. So just go with the add campaign members button, MassMailer clone, remove duplicate campaign members, reset campaign member status, send via MassMailer, set member status, unscheduled job. So these are the ones that you would actually want to add. Same thing if you want to add it in Lightning. So you would do this. So there's a custom button called for every feature that we have. There are two things that you would see. One is a custom button and action. In this demo, I'm gonna drag and drop the custom button. So select that. And this is MassMailer clone custom button. In the next release, you can pick and choose either one of them. It doesn't matter. But for this release, make sure that you select only the custom button. And then reset, quick action, custom button. Send via MassMailer, the custom button. Set member status, the custom button. Unscheduled job, the custom button. So once you're done with that, go to the related list. Again, select search for MassMailer. You would see the email status and then outreaches. So these are the two that you would see. And if you are interested to see the campaign member status values that we add, you can drag and drop the campaign member status as well. They'll show all the campaign member status as a related list. That's kind of a neat thing to have for sure in the page layout. So again, email status, go ahead and add those fields. Uncheck. Say OK. For outreaches, I'm not adding anything, even though you're free to add more values, but I think by default it has a few, so I'm just leaving the way it is. But I'm going to uncheck these two and then say OK and save. So now we're done with the page layout. And then you go to the next option, that is search layout. And then default layout here, click on that edit. There's a button called new MassMailer campaign, and then save it. Same thing, search layout for Salesforce Classic. The list view, edit. And then you would select the same button, new MassMailer campaign button, and then save. So now you're done with the search layout and the page layouts as well. So pretty much you're good to go. Again, if you go back to Salesforce here. If you have any contact or lead, let's say, let's take a look at lead. You may or may not be using leads. Since it's easy to create a lead, I'm just demonstrating this. And I'm going to go quickly create a lead here. And then just save this by entering some values. And then save. Okay, so you would see a button called Send via MassMailer. So that's the one that we added. And then the related list, we have the email status and the suppression list. It showed up for the lead. And if you actually want to send out email to say list view, a Salesforce list view, we also added that button. So if you ever wanted to kind of send out email to all open leads, you have an option here, send via MassMailer. That button is also added. It'll work the same way if you select any multiple records here and then you want to send out email. So this is for lead, same thing with the contact. And again, let's quickly take a look at campaign as well. So if you go to campaign, you will same thing, you will see the button, the search layout button that we added. So that's called new MassMailer campaign, through which you will actually create a new campaign. Not that I'm demonstrating everything, I want to show you the button. So I'll go ahead and click on that new MassMailer campaign button real quick. And then we would see the buttons on the campaign. So let's just go to the next step. And then I'm not adding campaign members here. I would just go hit this close button so that we go to the Salesforce campaign layout just to demonstrate the buttons. Okay, so this is the standard campaign layout. You can see the campaign member status are added, and then you will also see this email status and the outreaches related list. And then here, when you drop it down, you will see all the options that we added. It's add campaign members, clone, remove duplicate campaign members, reset campaign member status, and via MassMailer, set member status, and run schedule job. So these are all the buttons that we added in MassMailer. So everything showed up. So that's how you kind of test out the page layouts. Same thing for lead, contact. And similarly, if you enabled any other object other than lead contact, you can always add the same thing for the page layouts and the search layout, and then you'll see those buttons too. So that's pretty much it, and I hope you kind of understood how to install the app and configure it. If you still have any questions, feel free to go to our support site. Again, it's called support.massmailer.io, and then on the home page, you have an option to raise a new support ticket here by clicking on this link. You can contact us at 1-800-297-0991, or you can email us, that is support@massmailer.io. All right, thank you so much for watching this demo video. I appreciate it.